Hello, and welcome to Crime in Court. My name is Heather, and this is the second part to my follow-up to the Frank's memorandum that we read. So there was a 9-part series of where I read out the Frank's memorandum. It was 136 pages long, so we did it in 9 different parts, each about an hour long, and then after that, I did a follow-up which gave you a little overview of what Odinism is, the religion, how it kind of got to shift to where it is now, where it's kind of more looked at as a anti-love kind of group than it is a religion anymore. So we kind of looked at the progression of that. And so now we're going to talk specifically about the Vinlanders Social Club. And this, as we know, Elvis Fields and Brad Holder, if you read through the Frank's memorandum with us, then you would know that Elvis Fields, Brad Holder, Patrick Westphal, they all had ties to this Vinlander group, which they claim is a religion, but if we look deeper into it and research it, we are finding that it is actually a white nationalist group that only allows races of the same in their group. I don't know how else to say it. Like, they are very they believe in white superiority of the races. I don't know how else to say it other than that. So I'm going to try to use code words because a lot of these words can be found as offensive to some, and that's why YouTube bans them. So, or, they don't ban your video, but they ban it from like being seen to anybody else. So the only people that will see your videos is your subscribers. They won't recommend it to other viewers if there's words in it that they don't like and things like that. So I'm just trying to abide by YouTube's strange laws or guidelines. All right, so the Vinlander Social Club was formed in 2003 by a handful of former members and associates of a rogue racist SH group that outlaw hammerskins. Publicly, the Vinlanders appear to be a coalition of independent state SH crews, but in reality, the group functioned as a single entity. So this article, I remember last time we actually referenced the SPLC, the Southern Poverty Law Center. So this is an article coming from the Southern Poverty Law Center. The Vinlanders relished a reputation for drinking, brawling, and following a racist version of Odinism, a form of ancient paganism once practiced by the Vikings, which we discussed in the first episode, or first part of the of this Odinist history lesson here. So in its own words, quote, this is from co-founder Brian James on the group's website. Our beliefs stem from being deprived of our individual freedoms and from our witnessing of the decline of Western civilization. One of the most obvious and sometimes relevant symptoms of this decline is forced integration and the decline of our towns and neighborhoods based on racial makeup. Also from co-founder Brian James. We will die fighting together for self-determination and self-respect in a world that has turned its back on natural law and common sense. Also from Brian James. As an organization and a tribe, we will do what we have always done. We will thwart and displace those who want to harm us, and protect and better those who support us. And then this is from co-founder Eric Fairburn in a message board post directed at rival Hammerskin Nation. I am ready for Valhalla or prison to do what is right. We are sick of the lies, tired of the BS. We are calling you out. Either listen to the truth or fight for your lives for the lie. All right, so background. Brian James, or Eric the Butcher Fairburn, Brian Widener, Nate Slider, and Donald Wyrich were no strangers to the SH scene when they formed the Vinlanders Social Club in 2003. James, Widner, Slider. Jesus. My dog is crazy. I don't know what she's getting all crazy about. But she just like totally bounced my whole computer and everything. Okay, sorry. All right, so James, Widener, and Slitter had been members of a SH faction called the Outlaws Hammerskins, and Fairburn and Wyrick were hangarounds or associates of that group before starting in 2002 the Hoosier State SHs, a group that operated out of Indiana and Illinois. Oh, great, my state too. They recruited members in Ohio to start a neighboring faction, the Ohio State SHs. Though outwardly it appeared that the two groups were separate, in reality they functioned as a single organization. As more crews were created, they all became part of what came to be known as the Vinlanders Social Club. According to a statement by James posted on the Vinlanders website on 2007, the group was created because now my dogs have to like make a ton of noise playing. And Abby, what's wrong? Oh. Okay. James wrote that the Vinlanders was to be something that was... Wait, did I say it? Yeah. Did I read that sentence? Okay. According to the statement by James posted to on the Vinlanders website, the group was created because we were disappointed with the movement that we dedicated our young lives to. James wrote that the Vinlanders was to be something that was going to replace and surpass the old guard in the SH scene, even by force if necessary. The Vinlanders was formed in large part as a direct challenge to the Hammerskin Nation, a coalition of Hammerskin crews that had dominated the SH scene for more than a decade. So the schism between the Hammerskins and Vinlanders was evident in October 2005 when a meeting of the National SH Council... There's a National SH Council? What? Was held in Ohio, property of a Blood and Honor member. Blood and Honor and C-18, short for Combat 18, are affiliated SH groups that split off from Blood and Honor Worldwide in England, and the Vinlanders aligned themselves with the American spin-offs, while Hammerskin Nation supported Blood and Honor Worldwide. Okay, so you see there's like so many different like factions and variations of these different groups, the anti-love groups. All right, so the Vinlanders aligned themselves. Okay, more than a dozen groups, mostly SH crews, also more than a dozen supremacist groups, mostly SH crews, but also the Imperial Clans of America and the Neo-Ends National Alliance. There's also a National Alliance for those people. Were in attendance, and by the close of business, the coalition decided to call itself Council 28, 2 standing for B, representing blood, and 8 for H, meaning honor. Okay. Conspicuously absent were any Hammerskins and groups allied with them, such as the Portland, Oregon-based SH group Volksfront. The next gathering of Council 28 was much more eventful than the first. The Vinlanders and their allies met on Memorial Day weekend 2006 at the annual Nordic Fest anti-love rock festival held at the IKA compound in Kentucky. Fairburn and James posed for a photo mocking Hammerskin Nation by holding its flag upside down. When Stephen Boswell, a member of the Missouri branch of the Neo-Ens National Socialist Movement, spoke to the crowd at Nordic Fest, he said that the supremacist movement couldn't succeed by belonging to a social club where all we do is drink and shoot the shit every Saturday night. Sounds like a social club. The Vinlanders, assuming the comment was directed at their social club, took offense. As soon as Boswell left the stage, they pummeled and kicked him repeatedly as his wife and 10-year-old daughter watched in horror. The assault buttressed the Vinlanders' take no prisoners reputation among some of the movement, but many older supremacists bemoaned the white-on-white violence. 2 months later, Fairburn published an open challenge to the Hammerskin Nation for 30 versus 30 mutual combat on neutral ground. The Vinlanders' first choice for combat was fists and boots, said Fairburn, who also has used the name Eric Wolf. The secondary option, bricks, bats, knives, clubs, and axes. Victors in the battle would become the undisputed leaders of the North American scene, he added. The Hammerskins didn't publicly respond and no battle ensued, nor was it clear whether Fairburn had issued the challenge on his own or on behalf of the Vinlanders. By 2007, the Vinlanders had 8 chapters in 6 states. Their affiliated SH crews began using the Vinlander name, so the Florida State Skins, for example, became the Florida Vinlanders. But a violent encounter in downtown Indianapolis in March of that year between Fairburn, fellow Vinlanders Tim Dumas and Josh Kern, and an African-American man signaled a reversal in the group's fortunes. According to police reports and media accounts, as Dexter Lewis passed a sidewalk table occupied by the Vinlanders, he commented to Fairburn, "Nice tattoo." It's unclear what tattoo he meant, as Fairburn had quite a few, including the Vinlanders' insignia inked atop his scalp, and the word, I'm going to say unaliving, etched across his chest, or his neck. That's lovely. So in any case, Fairburn didn't take the remark as a compliment. And he said, "N-word, don't you dare. Stop." He replied. Lewis kept going. Within a few minutes, Fairburn, Dumas, and Kern tracked him down at a nearby intersection, knocked him out, and then continued to punch him and kick him in the face and stomach after Lewis collapsed in a crosswalk. Undeterred by the large crowd of witnesses that had gathered, one of the Vinlanders allegedly yelled to a spectator who tried to stop the attack, "Back off or you'll get a piece of this too." Another of the trio told a woman on a cell phone, "If you call 911, I'll end you." All 3 skins were arrested a short time later. In 2007, Dumas pleaded guilty to a felony charge of criminal recklessness and was sentenced to a year in prison. Kern pleaded guilty to misdemeanor battery and received 60 days. Fairburn, the ringleader in the attack, was sentenced to 5 years in prison with 3 years suspended. Shackled and handcuffed, Fairburn did his best to sound contrite during his sentencing hearing, respectfully answering "yes ma'am, no ma'am" to the black female judge peering down on him from the bench. When she announced that she was barring him from associating with other SHs or any other supremacists as a condition of his suspended sentence, Fairburn didn't hesitate to renounce the Vinlanders in open court. I'm no longer a member of the Vinlanders, and I no longer have any association or ties whatsoever with the Vinlanders Social Club or any other clubs or anything, Fairburn said. I haven't been around those people in over a year. I'm 34 years old and I've got too much going on in my life to waste any more of it. When I decided to get out, I grabbed as many people as I could and ran for the door. Anybody who I thought I could talk some sense into, I did, and a few quit along with me. In fact, several longtime members did quit, in some cases joining outlaw motorcycle gangs. Others were arrested on their own criminal charges. In September 2007, Vinlanders co-founder James stated on the group's website that the Vinlanders and Hammerskin Nation had negotiated a truce, ending a 3-year feud. Vinlanders and the Hammerskin Nation have been conducting meetings and parties on both sides they've been conducting meetings and parties on both sides have decided to declare peace, he wrote. But the Hammerskins made no public acknowledgement of the purported truce or the negotiations that supposedly preceded it. To the contrary, Volksfront leader Randall Krager, whose group is allied with the Hammerskins, issued a press release claiming that neither VF nor any of its affiliates had or would make any deals with persons who have attempted to harm or slander VF. James declared himself the leader of the Vinlanders, which entered a period of decline. He published a lengthy statement on the group's website in 2007 saying that the group was going its own way in its supremacist movement. Okay. So he added, "We have attempted to change this movement from within and have not succeeded. It is our opinion that a large number of the people involved in the greater movement are paid informants, social outcasts, and general losers in life." Well then, there was more violence to come from Vinlander members. In 2009, Michael Parrish, a corrections officer in Monroe County, Pennsylvania, and secretly a probationary member of the Vinlanders, ended his live-in girlfriend and their 2-year-old son. His apartment was filled with memorabilia, including photos and DVDs depicting good old A.H. himself. In 2010, he pleaded guilty to 2 counts of first-degree unaliving. In September 2010, the Phoenix New Times reported that more than a dozen members of or associates of the Vinlanders in that area had been arrested in the previous year, essentially wiping them out in Arizona. 2 of the reputed members, Travis Ricci and Aaron Schmidt, were indicted for the drive-by shotgun slaying of a white woman walking at night with her African-American boyfriend. Yikes. Okay. So another alleged Vinlander was arrested and charged with trying to intimidate a witness in Ricci and Schmidt's case. In May 2011, Ricci was sentenced in another case to 22 years in state prison for bashing his girlfriend's head into a wall at a party and stabbing the 2 men who came to her aid, one in the hand and the other in the neck. He sounds like a real nice guy. After being released from prison in 2009 for his Indianapolis assault, Fairburn turned himself into police in that city in September 2010 and confessed to the 2004, there's a lot of dates flying around, the 2004 ending of a man in Springfield, Missouri. The man, William McDaniel, was allegedly responsible for the drunken driving life ending of one of Fairburn's friends. So in June 2011, Fairburn was convicted of second-degree unaliving and is serving life in prison. In June 2011, Brian Widner, was the focus of the MSNBC documentary Erasing Anti-Love, which chronicles the excruciating series of treatments he received to remove the tattoos that covered his face and neck. Widner, who had left the movement in 2006, publicly renounced his supremacist views. In the summer of 2011, the Vinlanders held their first ever white power concert entitled Plunder and Pillage, which drew more than 50 SHs in Ohio from around the country. To Ohio from around the country, sorry. Then, at a later concert, James hung out with Richie Myers, head of the Florida faction of the Confederate Hammerskins, a sign that the truce declared 4 years earlier with the Hammerskins apparently was still in force. Okay, so that right there was just an overview of the Vinlanders, just the Vinlanders themselves, and how they related to all these other groups, these other anti-love groups that are imprisoned, this type of Odinist pagan religion thing that has evolved from the pagan religion to now a supremacist group. So that was kind of a good progression of how or a good article of how we see the Vinlanders, how they came about in the prison system. All right, so this is the final article we're going to read for this part 2 that we're doing here right now for Odinists in prison. So it is so prevalent that the Supreme Court even knows about it. They are now requiring prisons to give special consideration to these pagans who believe in one race type of thing. So correctional officers around the country struggle with a court ruling accommodating Odinism, a sometimes racist religion. Hope I don't get dinged for that, but whatever. Okay. This guy's got a lot of back tattoos there. All right, so clarification. This story originally contained a description of litigation brought by a group of plaintiffs, including several members of the Caucasian cartel prison gang. It never intended to suggest that the Asatru adherent who originally filed the case was a member of the Caucasian cartel or any other gang. Each month, Laurel Owen leaves her home in Arkansas and drives to prisons as far away as Texas and Kentucky, where she is paid to teach inmates the rituals of a Norse pagan religion known as Odinism or Asatru. So they are still going around and teaching this quote-unquote religion, Norse pagan religion, which is just propagating more and more racism in our country. This is crazy. Who tells her to go there and tell them, I don't know. All right, so Owen, who heads a support group called the Prison Affairs Bureau of the Odinic Rite, says many inmates that she meets have suffered for their beliefs. Most of the guys you encounter inside will have spent time in the hole and been labeled a security threat just for being Odinists, she writes. They have fought to be who they are. Have they? Do they have a right to be threatening other people and other races and whatnot? As practiced by Owen and others outside of prison, Odinism tends to be a benign form of paganism, tolerant of others and close to nature. Well, that's the original paganism, but that's not what it is now. Behind the walls, however, it is likely to take on a much more sinister cast, and many prison wardens have long regarded Odinism as the religious arm of white supremacist prison gangs. The U.S. Supreme Court has nonetheless ruled that Odinist inmates have certain rights that prisons must recognize. So while a decade ago a pagan volunteer like Owen would have been dismissed as a kook or at worst a gang liaison, Odinist inmates today can wear Thor's hammer pendants under their jumpsuits and request visits from outside leaders. The Supreme Court ruling in 2005 involved a case brought by a band of Satanist, Odinist, and supremacist Church of Jesus Christ Christian inmates, including some who are serving time for racially motivated unalivings. The justices ruled that prisons must accommodate these unusual faiths. So even if if you are an Odinist and you're in prison, you have rights, is what this is saying. The Supreme Court is protecting their rights. So 4 years and several inmate lawsuits later, more than 15 state prisons now recruit non-inmate Odinists to develop policy, write scripts for rituals, and lead ceremonies behind bars. Along with this new wave of religious rights has come a raft of litigation from inmates seeking to build fire pits in their cells, from convicted anti-love crime perpetrators joining class action lawsuits to take 60 Odinist holidays off work. 60 Odinist holidays. And from supremacists demanding the right to read literature, exhorting followers to wage wars of race purification. As a security screen non-racist Asatru volunteers like Owen stream into the system, they face suspicion from prison chaplains and competition from better established racist Odinist groups with clout among inmates. All right. The devil's advocate. Asatru and Odinism have had inmate adherents since the mid-1980s. So this has been going on since the 80s, in the prison system at least, that we know of. Among believers, Asatru is sometimes used interchangeably with Odinism, and at other times it designates an Icelandic sect that venerates a separate family of gods. While some prisoners have embraced a non-racial Asatru as a faith whose warrior ethos speaks to them in a hostile environment, white inmates have imported a Nordic racial paganism from the racist right subculture of the early 90s. So that's again, it's like more background as to how we got to where we are today with the beliefs that they have now. So both types of inmates got a boost from the 2005 U.S. Supreme Court case Cutter versus Wilkinson, brought by incarcerated Asatruers, Satanists, Wiccans, and adherents of the Aryan Nations Church, who sought the right to worship in a group, wear religious medallions, and read literature from their faith. An Ohio prison has denied their requests, arguing that their religion was just a front for gang activity. The inmates filed the original case in 2000, only months after President Bill Clinton signed into law the Religious Land Use and Institutionalized Persons Act, which placed prisons that restricted religious expression under heavy legal scrutiny. Interesting. The Ohio inmates' violence and racism were so objectionable, however, that in 2005, the Department of Justice under President George W. Bush, which otherwise supported, what is that? RLUIP? Oh, the Religious Land Use and Institutionalized Persons Act, urged the court to take a different case on the same issue. In a brief urging the court to allow restrictions on Odinist practices, Ohio's Attorney General noted that the plaintiff in one suit was convicted for conspiring to attack the school attended by the daughter of a judge presiding over a desegregation case. And that most plaintiffs in a second suit have documented affiliations with prison gangs, including the Aryan Brotherhood, that 1 and other SH groups. And that several have been involved in racially motivated endings or assaults, some since the case began. Nonetheless, the Supreme Court ruled in favor of the inmates, noting that for more than a decade, the Federal Bureau of Prisons has managed the largest correctional system in the nation under the same heightened scrutiny standard as that act, without compromising prison security, public safety, or the constitutional rights of other prisoners. Since the ruling, the prison systems of Indiana, Michigan, and Texas have settled lawsuits with Odinist inmates and rewritten their religion policies, although similar suits brought by inmates in Alabama, Maine, Montana, Oregon, Utah, and Virginia have been shot down by state courts. I think they should be shut down. I don't know why they allowed it in these particular states, but whatever. That's my opinion, and I can have it. I'm allowed, but it doesn't change anything for having my opinion. All right, at latest count, 15 states allow some form of group of Asatru or Odinist worship. In a 2007 affidavit for a Utah prisoner suing for damages after being denied the right to use ceremonial altar cloths and drink mead from a bullhorn in an Asatru ceremony, a fellow inmate stated, "Every prison I've been to has a Asatru Odinist program. While in federal custody in Colorado, we won a federal legal proceeding for our own outdoor area similar to the Native Americans. Our sponsor was actually one of the prison's correctional officers." Okay. So not all correction officers are so sympathetic to Odinism. In a 2004 report, the National Gang Crime Research Center surveyed prison officials in 49 states and found that Odinist Asatruers and Wotensvolk were the most common extremist religions in the American prison system today, among the inmates. So one chilling example of Odinism in prison gone haywire is the case of Michael Lenz, a self-described high priest of Asatru. In 2000, he and 5 Asatruer inmates met around a makeshift altar for a blot. Remember we talked about that in the last time, in which followers make an offering of food and drink to the gods. As Lenz would later testify, he became convinced that inmate Brent Parker was not taking the ceremony seriously and his life had to end to protect the honor of the gods. Lenz and another inmate, Jeffrey Remington, stabbed Parker 68 times with a makeshift knife. Lenz was executed for the unaliving in 2006. Remington committed self-unaliving in 2004 while on death row for what they did, I guess. I don't know if it was guilt or just to self-sacrifice to the gods. I don't know. What do you think? So Aryan prisoners of war. Odinism's most violent prison strain was cooked up in the Colorado Supermax cell of lifer inmate David Lane. Lane drove the getaway car for the Order, the right-wing terrorist group that in the 1980s netted more than $4 million in robberies of armored cars, and unalived liberal talk show host Alan Berg in his Denver driveway. In 1995, Lane, along with his wife Katja and business partner Ron McVan, created Wotensvolk, a religion. It sounds like a German word to me, and I don't know how to say that. Okay, so a religion that refers to the Christian New Testament as the 10 commandments for racial self-unaliving, and offers in its place Wotanism, which Lane described as religion that preaches war, plunder, and sex. Okay. Lane noted that Wotan, in addition to being the Germanized spelling of Odin, oh, okay, so I was right, is also the acronym of Will of the Aryan Nation. Okay. Wotan's Volk name recognition is high among the Aryan prison population, writes Swedish scholar Matthias Gardell, a leading authority on Nordic paganism. Katja Lane's campaigning has contributed to the fact that all states now permit the wearing of a Thor's hammer as a religious medallion. So people are worshiping Thor and his hammer. Instead of a cross of Jesus, it's the hammer of Thor. All right, so in 2001, at the height of its popularity, Wotan's Volk boasted a membership of 5,000 inmates. Today, the organization is defunct, but its lavishly illustrated books remain in print and in demand among prisoners who have brought state suits to possess them. In contrast with their Asatru kin, however, the Wotanists' claims have been uniformly rejected by the courts, as judges say violence advocated by the religion's texts outweigh its free speech merits in a prison setting. Exactly. So why not all the Odinist religions as well? What's the difference? I don't know. So Lane remains a mythic hero in white power circles and was, until his 2007 ending, the top Aryan prisoner of war, noted for coining the 14 words that serve as a rallying cry for militant nationalists. We must secure the existence of our people and a future for white children, blah, 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 blah. Lane's devotion to Odinism lives on among dozens of other so-called Aryan prisoners of war, white inmates lionized by the white power movement for their activism. Odinists represent a significant subgroup of white supremacists in prison known as the Aryan prisoners of war, according to sociologist at Portland State University in Oregon, Randy Blazek, who studies prison Odinism. For his research, Blazek has interviewed dozens of Aryan prisoners of war, including Lane, before he was ended, and other members of the order. The growth of the religion of Odinism among inmates has significant implications for the spread of hate crimes or anti-love crimes, domestic terrorism, racial divisiveness, and the destabilization of prison populations. Absolutely. It's dangerous to be propagating these messages. All right. Well, anyways. So some Aryan POWs, Blazek says, embrace Odinism not as religion, but as consoling ideology in support of their view that the white race, is being assaulted and emasculated by social forces. As one inmate wrote in response to the study, I'm of the subset of that community that do not believe in literal Vikings in the sky, but do think the values embodied in the Odinist god sense are especially pertinent for imprisoned Caucasians. Most prisoners are victims of religious intolerance. Baloney. They're convicted of offenses against the idea of the United States. Okay. These POWs represent racist Odinism's violent fringe, but many jailhouse conversations to neo-pagan faiths are, in fact, more benign. Some prisoners see the appeal of prison Odinism as an avenue to win prison privileges, such as time for religious ceremonies, as well as a way to cope with prison life and society in general. And I would imagine it's a way to protect yourself if you are part of this brotherhood, just for the sake of, saving your own ass. So, however, those recognized as Aryan POWs by the white community identify With the need for aggressive activism, the question that remains is which end of the spectrum attracts more inmates? How many Odinist inmates subscribe to this supremacy is a question that generates more heat than light. Valgard Marie, an Asatru leader and consultant to the Federal Bureau of Prisons, contends that less than 10% are racial fanatics. But in Texas, which boasts the largest prison system in the country, security threat group why can't I speak? Coordinator Sigafredo Sanchez says 90% of Odinist inmates are classified as belonging to these supremacist gangs. They, like all other gang members, are relocated to separate wings of the prison where they cannot access group religious services. It's been my experience that legitimate groups will carry some of these more racist members because it swells numbers. Among them, there's a real serious dislike of racist pagans, but at the same time, numbers count in prison. Between the racist and non-racist believers are a large number of Odinists until release who join in meetings and make offerings to the gods as at blots, less for spirituality than to break up the boredom and the isolation of prison. They've got plenty of time on their hands. There's also the practicality of it. It gets you out of your cell. There may be food and drink available also. Sanchez, the Texas prisoners security coordinator, adds, "We have had Odinists for quite a while. You have to look at the historical basis. Aryan groups are looking for anything that would be beneficial and a place where no one will stop them from meeting. They've always tried to use a religion that somebody can bond with." So, runestones or gang signs? After a 2-year lawsuit, the Texas Department of Corrections is negotiating with an inmate who is seeking the right to lead his own Asatru group service and use runestones, a set of 24 small blocks or runes carved with ancient symbols that make up an alphabet. Sanchez is wary of both developments. Not all of our officers are trained to look at runic codes. We had a guy out there who was ABT, Aryan Brotherhood of Texas. That's what he had in runic type writing on his tattoo. The guy was able to make it out there in general population and not be segregated as a gang member because the officer did not recognize the runic symbols. Prisons that use the rune stone as gang sign policy to deny access to Odinists have had little sway with courts, most of whom cite the large presence of Muslim, Jewish, and Latino inmates who use Arabic, Hebrew, and Spanish in their services. Donald Rothstein, who has spent more than 20 years investigating security threat groups from the Minnesota Corrections System, said that Odinist religious services, just like any religious group meeting, provide an opportunity for him and his colleagues to gain intelligence on security threats. Asatru or Odinist inmates are allowed to meet for group worship in 4 of the state prison facilities, and they are monitored when they do. If for some reason supremacist inmates are having an action and 50 of them show up, say that's 5 times the normal service, we know something is going on. Okay, so not all forms of Asatru are difficult to decode. In Maine, inmate Dale Wood, who referred to himself as the Gothi, or leader of his Asatru group, sued the state's prison system after his group was disbanded by correctional officers. While inspecting the group's religious lockers, authorities found pictures of those symbols of the ends, and the 10 Commandments from Wooten's Volk Wisdom for Aryan Men, a violently racist revision of Jesus' parables whose 5th commandment reads, "Cut off Zog's head and feed it to the dogs." Government beyond the consent of the governed is tyranny and theft. Obedience to tyranny is slavery. Okay, so prior to this time, I and The other prison staff thought that the prison Asatru group was a religious group, said a corrections sergeant in a court affidavit. I determined that the Asatru group at the facility was really a white supremacist gang. Pagan versus pagan. Correctional officers aren't the only ones motivated to expose sham Odinist groups. In 2007, Murray, the Asatru leader who consults for the federal prison system, took the unusual step of testifying against Odinist inmates as a paid witness for the state of Ohio. The case, which is still in litigation, is a class action suit led by an Asatru adherent who believes his faith entitles him to more than 60 days a year off of work. It's a frivolous lawsuit. Murray told the intelligence report, I've written the runic calendar for the Federal Bureau of Prisons. There are only 12 recognized holidays. Other neo-pagan groups have called Murray a traitor for his action. Laurel Owen, the Odinist prison volunteer from the Arkansas Ozarks, writes in a how-to guide for outside Odinist volunteers that there are real dangers involved in teaching Odinism to inmates. Rival gang members will compete for your attention and for a place of leadership. You may even be asked to join a gang. She adds, the first day you go in, tell your group that gang affiliations are not your business and that you don't want to know. Tell them the important thing is this. You are there for spiritual reasons, not to front for a gang. Owen believes Odinism is a positive force in inmates' lives, and she has even developed an Odinist alternative to Alcoholics Anonymous that is in use at two Texas prisons. Okay. But the questionable motives of Odinist inmates are part of the reason why Murray, for example, now refuses to certify convicts, past or present, as Gothies or leaders of Asatru groups. Instead, he is focused on certifying counselors to respond to the growing demand for Asatru and Odinist religious volunteers inside prison. In Texas, the prison wardens are adapting as well. We're not looking at Odinists as a group anymore, but we can monitor individuals for gang activity. That's important. An Odinist who is a gang member who monopolizes that religion, he can become a charismatic leader and bond that group and make it a gang. It's important that we stop that before it happens. So as you can see, there is a wide, rampant, system-wide issue where Odinism is in the prison system. It is being, the inmates are using it as a front for criminal activity, but saying it's a religion. However, there's not a whole lot of religion to it. Although this Owens woman thinks so, but I tend to disagree. What it's become now, and no one's practicing the old ways of paganism in prison. You're going to use it to your advantage somehow. If you're a prisoner and that's what you know, and you can, and you're, it's a dog-eat-dog world. You have to, basically, to survive. So, I don't know. What do you guys think? Do you think that there are a lot of these SHs everywhere and you just never knew it? Or did we always know it? Did you always know it? And I'm just the idiot that didn't realize it? Has this been going on right under our noses this whole time? I don't know. It's very problematic at all in the first place that this is happening, but it's scary. I mean, it's really scary to think that these groups are out there and possibly, I mean, this could even have some ties with the, I don't know what I'm saying. It's just, sorry, it's crazy to me that this stuff is even going on. And it's not just Indiana, it's in many prisons all over. So it's not just in Indiana, it's not just in Delphi, but it is happening in Delphi. It's also in Idaho. It's in all the states. I mean, it's probably in all 50 states. but we're just not as aware of it, or it's being called something else with a different name, and we don't know that that's what it is, because many of the names that we saw in that one article in the first part that we did, you would never imagine that these were the names of some anti-love groups. If you look through the names of these here, where are they? Gallows Tree, Daily Stormer. Like, you would never know that that is what it's in reference to, the name of the... Okay, what happened? Why did it go all clear on me? American Freedom Party, Sons and Daughters of Liberty, the American Guard. Like, you would never... WTM Enterprises. You wouldn't think that these are the names of gangs or cults or whatever in a prison, but that is, they name themselves something that you wouldn't relate to what they're doing and what they're all about. So it's a good disguise, I guess. I don't know. What do you guys think? It's so disturbing to me that this is going on. Anyways, please let me know in the comments below what you think about this. If you have questions, I would love to go, dive deeper into more areas of this. I just don't know where, I wanted to take it. So I gave you guys a good background of what is going on in the, where the religion came from originally, what it was, what it evolved into, and just the fact that it is now prevalent in prisons and everywhere. And they're even getting rights from the Supreme Court to practice their religion, if you can call it that. So I don't know. That bothers me that they're getting allowed to practice it, or their rights. They're allowed to have freedom of religion, but when it comes to this, I don't see it as a religion. I see it as a group, a criminal group. So anyways, what do you guys think? Please let me know in the comments below. And I hope to see you in the next one. Thanks so much for watching. Take care. Bye.